Together, let's fight fake news.
The world is going digital and creativity is no longer just a passion, it's a pathway. Next Creator is building dignified job opportunities for young people by turning creativity into real careers. It's about more than just content. It's about learning digital skills that lead to sustainable income, branding yourself with confidence, understanding influence and the digital economy. Next Creator equips young creatives with the tools they need to grow, adapt and thrive in a fast-changing world. If you want to turn your ideas into opportunities, if you want to make creativity work for you, this is where you start. Scan the QR code and apply now. Next Creator, your skills, your future, your opportunity.
Every love story has a beginning, a moment, a memory. This Valentine's, Next Radio is celebrating real love, real emotions, real stories. How did you meet? What makes your love special? Why does your story deserve to be heard? Call us on 0707 106 106 to share your story. We'll feature the most touching stories live in the studio. Surprise your partner and celebrate your love with all of Uganda. One couple will win the ultimate Valentine's experience. Your love, your story on Next Radio.
The global AI market is projected to reach $1.770 trillion by 2032. Do you have the skills needed to seize this opportunity? Build a rewarding career in AI with the postgraduate program in AI and machine learning, business applications. Take the first step towards AI mastery. Apply now.
In 2025, we achieved.
There's only one, I think, tomorrow for National Youth MP, and then one on the 17th, which are the residual elections, and then the election polling exercises are done. You must have a mouthful to talk about tonight.
I'd actually lost track of which election is coming next. We've had quite a number, but I honestly don't know where to start from. Should it be about La Ropeche or the speakership? What do you think?
Let's see.
NBS Frontline.
Nalgoa Rose of Nook got 25,443.
If electropolitics were a classroom, Masaka just taught the syllabus on advanced arithmetic, how to lose, win, and win again without voting twice. Judge Abbott Med pulled a judicial masterstroke that left Nopes Rose Naluboa, initially declared winner of the Masaka Women MP seat out of the maximum body politic, returning NRM's Justin Namere.
Court proceeds to order a recount of all boxes.
149.
Justin Namere's win is but a peculiar case, apparently from a parallel universe where numbers behave differently after judicial reflection.
Surely one box out of 314, that can be, it can easily break.
So, welcome to Masaka, where votes don't just count, they reconsider.
Ballot boxes have broken seal.
Meanwhile, the other political casualties like Vincent Bamulanga Chisempija, Sarah Acheng Opendi, and others whose requests for a recount didn't suffice, now look at Masaka as their would-be place to contest, just as democracy looked at them and said, you tried. This is where the electoral politics stops being a process and becomes performance art. Because what do you call an election where the referee returns to the pitch after the final whistle and rearranges the storyline? Do we call this institutional remixing with a DJ set where ballots are tracks and Judge Asimwe controls the playlist? Masaka's recount raises the real question no one wants to answer out loud. Are elections still about voters, or are they now about who survives the recount? Is this new electoral theology?
It does not augur well for courts of law to be used in such a process.
Any tampering means what you're going to recount is not what was there.
This is The Frontline. NBS Frontline.
Hello, it's very good to have you with us on this episode of The Frontline. My name is Simon Kagwa Njala. We're coming to the climax of a cycle of elections. One thing is very certain. These have not been the usual or the same election. It's not more of the same. It's been rather unique, and it's brought forth quite a number of aspects and trends that prompt a conversation on where the electoral journey of the country is headed. Well, from what used to be a depressing normal of ballot stuffing, security disrupting elections, bribery, we've now witnessed a series of denomination of candidates, and it's now shifted to the new phenomena called recounts that stand into yet another dilemma. The most fresh is the one in Masaka for Masaka District Woman Member of Parliament that saw Justin Namere of the NRM triumphing over Rose Naruboa of the National Unity Platform in a way that looked apparently mischievous. We'll be delving into this. Could this dilemma define the future of elections in the country? And how complex are elections becoming, given even the new trend where numbers continue to dive? Joining me tonight is the man fresh from a very fierce race in Laro Peche, Honorable Norbert Mao, Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, now incoming Member of Parliament for Laro Peche, President General of the Democratic Party, plus he's also bidding for the speakership. It's no longer a rumor. The people have requested. Well, Council Benjamin Katana, Treasurer National Unity Platform, is also joining us tonight, together with Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, Secretary General of the PFF, and Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality. We expect Honorable Ofono Pondo to join us in the course of our discussion. Good to have you all, and a very good evening.
Thank you.
I'll start with you, Councillor Katana. By the look of things, it appears you've lost Masaka. Was your jubilation short-lived? And what are the chances that you can salvage the situation, your victory that was snatched?
Well, I think the events in Masaka are part of a wider context where the people can vote, but someone else will determine who should represent them. In fact, in other places, even not through a recount, we have had, where the Honorable Semujo and I live, we have had a third person in a contest being declared the winner as
for the mayorship, right?
For the mayorship. So I think the wider context is that we have seen state institutions, including Electoral Commission and the courts of law, gradually losing their independence and capacity to discharge their duties fairly and in a neutral manner, and they have been captured by powerful individuals who now use them as weapons to do politics. And exactly that's what transpired in the particular race in Masaka. We have even had worse examples in Mukono for the LC5 chairperson, where the returning officer declared the winner, and after a few minutes, declared another winner, which is quite unprecedented. So the events in Masaka, in my view, are not just a problem of NUP, but a problem of our politics, and politics in a context where the rules have now been pushed to the background, and it is now might that is the key determinant of who leads which area.
Can you redeem or can you salvage Masaka?
Well, there are especially legal steps that are being taken. But I think whether we are able to salvage Masaka or not, especially in view of the increasing erosion of independence of courts of judicature and other institutions, it's regardless of the fact that it's a clear-cut case, you cannot predict which direction it will take. But even if we are able to, through a court process, set aside the injustice that has been occasioned on the Honorable Narbo and the people of Masaka, I think it would not solve the bigger problem of state institutions being used to do politics and disadvantaging individuals that do not subscribe to the ruling party.
Honorable Mao, this has been quite a peculiar election. Before we delve into other cases, the case of Masaka is rather intriguing. Do you fathom, as Minister for Justice, that a magistrate could find tampered ballot boxes and order a recount to happen?
First, Simon, I'm happy to be back on the front line after a very long absence.
You still have your seat?
Yes, I'm a permanent honorary member of the front line. And I thank you for doing your Your job is simply to shed light. So today, we should move away from generalizations. Let's deal with the
specifics.
The good thing is that looks like everybody is complaining. I heard the president complaining that the opposition is cheating. I heard the opposition saying that the NRM is cheating. But elections are really not about the candidates. It's not about the parties. It's about the citizens. After all, we are a republic. And in a republic, our form of government is a representative government. Since not all of us can preside over the country, our constitution requires that we delegate the powers of the sovereign people of Uganda to elected people. Now, in Uganda, we had a big war in the Luweero Triangle, and the reason was election rigging. And therefore, the NRM continues to be on trial because they embraced free and fair election as their main cause for going to the bush. And they did it in a patriotic spirit because, after all, the Uganda Patriotic Movement didn't really have any votes to be stolen by anybody in 1980. The votes that were stolen were the votes of the Democratic Party. But the NRM and their armed wing, the NRA, decided to raise the banner of that armed struggle, and the cause was to sanitize the politics of Uganda. Therefore, Ugandans must continue to talk about their expectations of the NRM. And where there is evidence that the NRM falls short of that expectation, that debate must continue. After all, Uganda is going to be around for a very long time until Jesus Christ comes back to claim the earth. Let me tell you what I know about Masaka. Right. Because not everybody is telling the whole story. Number one, it is wrong to act as if there are candidates who can't win, and therefore force must be used, fraud must be used so that they can win. I know for a fact that the NRM candidate, that is Justine Namere, actually departed for Masaka several years ago. You remember she was quite a character in Kampala. Then all of a sudden she woke up and just went to Masaka, started doing a lot of media work, doing a lot of rural activism, being very outspoken about subversion of government programs. In other words, she started championing popular causes. Therefore, to talk about her as if she didn't have any kind of following is also unfair. She definitely built that following because of her activities, starting some small TV station, being very active. Now, what I know is that the magistrate based his decision on some facts which were brought before him, namely that when some ballot papers, ballot boxes were being taken to the central point where they were supposed to be gathered, the people carrying those ballot boxes were attacked by people whose identities we still don't know in detail. In short, there was a distortion. So the magistrate realized that because of that violent attack on election officials by those who thereby waylaid those ballot boxes, it was necessary to order. The truth of the matter is that there are some facts which are not in the public view. If boxes of ballots are being taken to where they are supposed to be gathered, and then those delivering the boxes are attacked, I think that's a legitimate reason to question what...
Yeah, but legally, precedent, I think, overrides everything. The Ngomani maybe a Nima precedent.
As you know, we have precedent, but we also have facts that are well known. I do not want to comment on that because the matter has now gone to the High Court. I think that is now sub judice. But tonight I just want to say that in Masaka, goons attacked those who were delivering ballot boxes with the results. And that affected the final pronouncement that was overturned.
Before I get to Honorable Semuji,
the High Court will determine...
Yes, what appears quite bizarre is that in some boxes, it was discovered that there were only ballot papers ticked in favor of one candidate. Do you find that believable?
That is not possible. I do not think that it is possible to have a box in which all the ballots are ticked in favor of one candidate. there was definitely more than one candidate. If that were the case, they should have counted it. But I can tell you, those scenarios unfolded even in my own election as a young MP in 1996. And if I do not think the magistrate is so biased as to not even have the interests of the general public at heart, that he ignores that. I do not know whether it is the magistrate who reported that or it is the journalists who reported that. You are bringing it to my attention now. But I can tell you that in 1996, I was winning by close to 2,000 votes. Then we were told, and the law supported it, that there would be voting in so-called restricted areas, namely the front line. And ballots were brought in envelopes by helicopter. And we respect the law. So we sat to see what those ballots would do.
Is it the law or collusion?
It was the law.
To defile the law?
In my case, it was the law, which was passed by the legitimate legislature. Until we discovered that the ballot papers were photocopied, so we really had to be observant. And also until we discovered that indeed they used the army payroll instead of the voters register, because some dead soldiers apparently voted and they had not been deleted from the payroll. I think let us really deal with the actual facts. The media was there, and I'm sure they were filming everything. I do not know whether you have some pictures you can show us where one box. Yeah, I think it would be helpful if it is shown. Because we, as I said, our goal is really not to serve the interests of the parties that went to the contest, but we want to serve the interests of the people who need a representative in parliament.
Thank you. Honorable Semuju, to what extent does the massacre scenario typify what has become of elections?
The election that took us to parliament in 2011, there was a recount in Rubaga North.
Kasivante.
At what is that, Mwanga too? I went there as a friend, and the Honorable Elias Lukwago, the road mayor, was the lawyer for Moses Kasivante. In massacre, they must thank God they even allowed them to inspect. We arrived at Mwanga too. There are military, police. Lukwago and myself were nearly beaten until when we ran away. But this is a lawyer who went to represent a candidate during a recount. We were chased. And the person chasing us was Katongore Singh, who was a candidate and a party. But the military just joined him. So we left, and I think Kasivante followed. So that recount happened without the legal representation of Kasivante, and later on Kasivante himself. And he was unlucky. When he complained, he was arrested and taken to Luzira. I went to stand surety for him in another court, not Mwanga. I think there's another court there in Mengo. And the magistrate there said, you, Semuju, you are not substantial, so you cannot... So these things have happened. For me, what worries me is not massacre, but the scale at which these things are happening. Because the one of Kasivante, I have never seen that you go, the lawyer is chased, other colleagues who have come are also chased, even the candidate himself is chased. When we were being sworn in, Parliament was following alphabetical orders. But I think Katongole feared that there can be a court process that may stop him. So he was put in the first batch of those that were sworn in to make sure that he has entered Parliament. Institutions of the state, I remember I have said this many times when we were handling the constitutional amendment, the removal of age limit. My friend Mawanda had just been elected during a by-election.
Michael.
I think he was declared like today, and in the evening he's gazetted. You remember how many days it took and how many quarreling it took to gazette Narukoland for him to be sworn in. So my worry, as Council Katana said, is not just because of what happened in Masaka. What happened in Masaka just illustrates the point at which we are as a country. And the point the Honorable Norbert Mao makes is a very good point. And I have said before, elections was meant to be a national project where we've made genuine mistakes, we keep improving. Because this is a national project that today we are just beneficiary, tomorrow will not be there. If you asked me, these are the worst elections in our history. Candidates are crying, they are being beaten, even as I speak to you today. Candidates who are in a Tari Center in Wakiso, they don't see where tarring is taking place. They just come and announce NRM, you complain, they beat you and move you out. So the institutions have now been fully captured. That magistrate in Masaka will not be different from the one who presided over the recount of Moses Kasivante and one who ordered Kasivante to be taken to reserve for the next 3 months, that he was being sectarian. He was speaking about a Muindi. But a Muindi had stolen his victory. Even where Kasivante voted from, where he works, there is a polling station just outside Burangi. They changed him and gave him 0. And when you complain, they said you are being sectarian. So your place is Ruzira. So there is a context.
Okay, is it more of the past or?
Things are getting worse. Things are getting worse. I have councillors in my constituency who went through. They have their declaration forms, they announced to other people. And then NRM people keep saying, even if we fail, we are going to be announced. And I am told you have had meetings in Ichira of RDC, of ISO, of Electoral Commission officials, and an order has been issued that please, I am told of a case today of Gombe, where all councillors who went through were NOP, 26. Said, okay, NOP, we can give them 10. NRM takes 16. That has happened in Wakiso. So all the 26 were NOP.
If I could just interrupt you. Honorable Mao, are you aware of these machinations? There was an incident.
He was also complaining
of that. We have got DP candidates who won according to the tallies of results from polling stations. So these specific cases have got to be addressed. I've even shared some evidence with the chairman of the Electoral Commission, where a presiding officer was busy taking ballots from his desk, but he was unaware that he was being filmed.
As Minister of Constitutional Affairs then, what kind of billing, what kind of mark would you give this election? Or these are isolated incidents?
I don't want to say these are isolated incidents. I simply want to look at the specific cases. I do not think I can defend a presiding officer who is taking ballots, and the chairman of the Electoral Commission has promised to take action against such people. There are the constables who really were like statues at the polling stations. They were virtually helpless. In some places, there were those who apparently had powers to override even what was going on in the polling stations. Now, those are illegal activities, and they should be called by that proper name. we cannot.
Yeah, but the scale alone would give a bad score to the entire election.
I think you may be talking like if you're comparing road accidents and airplane crashes, because airplane crash kills so many people at a go, so you would assume that actually more people die in airplane crashes than road accident. Yet the reverse is true. So I do not want us to reduce the debate by saying, Minister of Justice, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the integrity of Uganda's elections? I think it is good to look at what we want to measure. If we are looking at the integrity of EC officials, I think they fell below average, because they are the ones who are supposed to really defend the process. They are the legitimate authorities. Now, if you can allow to be overrun by an RDC and so on, or any other security agent, that is a major failure. But I also have to talk about cases where election officials had the spine to stand up. I talk about Tochi constituency. I went there in person, and when I heard that there were some attempts to smuggle fictitious DR forms. So when I arrived, I requested to meet the returning officer. The NRM candidate was furious. Then I told him, come and be part of the meeting, because we are trying to solve a problem. Let's attack the problem. Let's not attack each other. I don't think it is my duty to attack a candidate or attack a political party, but if there's a problem. And the returning officer said, well, I suspect that my assistant has been compromised, because they delivered 7 envelopes which were unsealed, purportedly having DR forms from polling station. So the returning officer ordered that assistant to put those 7 envelopes aside for the simple reason that they were unsealed. And then this assistant spoke on the PA system, telling whoever was present in the hall that, look, I'm being stopped from tallying these new results that have just come. In other words, she was insubordinate. So when that became clear, then eventually those DR forms were not tallied because they were fake. They had been manufactured. In Kampala, I got reports that some presiding officers were selling the ballot papers, that a book of 50 ballots was being sold, some for as high as 5 million shillings. So I think we should really talk about the Electoral Commission, because that is the body that has the mandate.
Sorry, I interjected Honorable Semuju's submission. Honorable, we're talking the integrity of elections, citing the cases from Honorable Mao. Do you imagine this election fell short in every aspect, or there are aspects that you'd score as good?
I have in the past isolated the mistakes that are not deliberate. I don't want to blame people for those sort of mistakes. What should worry everybody is that many of the things that happened were deliberate. Because the Electoral Commission in the past have made mistakes, bona fide mistakes. But this time, I will start in my area. You get NRM people complaining that NRM is unfair to us because they were paying electoral officials, I think 100,000 per day. And the intention initially for the NRM, they wanted their children to be the one employed, leave alone the cheating. But we've worked for this party. So they started changing presiding officer. I even called the returning officer, not returning officer, there is an assistant, somebody who is in charge of children. And I said, you guys, why are you changing presiding officers overnight? So that's how they ended up with the presiding officer. Some of them unable even to tally and write and count and write on the DR forms. So at some polling stations, our only people are now the ones helping electoral commission to write. The machines failed, but some of the people who were deployed are people who had not been trained at all. So it's not an election. I want to convince myself that the electoral commission was in charge. I have not seen, witnessed any election in which the electoral commission has been overrun like this time. I am telling you now, I don't know why you journalists, when you go to tally centers like Wakiso, you focus at the returning officer. You don't interest yourself in what is going on in other rooms surrounding. Because I know for a fact in Wakiso, tallying is not happening in the tally center itself. It's happening somewhere else. Even as I speak to you now, I have evidence that candidates are being asked to pay money to be declared by those who are tallying outside the tally center. So this election is the worst in our history. It's the worst.
Council Benjamin Katana, when you look at the pattern of what has characterized this election, do you imagine there was a choreography that targeted the national inter-platform?
Well, there was indeed a scheme to disadvantage, first of all, national inter-platform, but also the other parties that are in the opposition, not restricted to the NUP. And I think for you to get a better appreciation of the situation, you need to look at the cycle from the time of compiling the register, the nominations. I'm sure you recall, or Ugandans record the number of people who were unfairly eliminated from the process of nominations in Bukedea and elsewhere. I'm sure the nation was following closely the unfairness, the role of the military in the campaigns. And on polling day, I think it went out of control. You had, and especially at tallying, here at the Kampala Tally Center, even being seen to have declaration forms was a crime. You are picked by soldiers and taken away. And the intention was to make sure that whatever they want to announce cannot be challenged. So I believe that whatever transpired in this process was not accidental. It was planned and sanctioned. The Electoral Commission, certainly as a duty bearer, takes a big blame.
But do you factor in the submission or the argument of Honorable Mao about allegations that there is a group of self-seeking political supporters who waylaid, for instance, in Masaka, ballot boxes?
Well, I don't know if the Honorable Mao is making reference to confidential information that is known to him by virtue of his position as a minister and not known to the public, but he also doesn't seem to have information of the ballot boxes that only had ballot papers ticked in favor of only one candidate. So the people who gave him information seem to have given him only one side of the information. But that particular piece of information is not known to the public, including myself, has not been reported by the media. And in fact, even if you had focused on the facts as reported to the public, is that even when the magistrate found that the boxes had been tampered with, a number of them, he chose to depart from the precedent and continue with the process of recount, clearly depicting a picture of a person that was determined to reach at a certain result, not necessarily executing the duty.
So is it the individual or the institution of the judiciary?
No, I think the individual is also a victim of a system. I don't think he's a bad person or a good person. One doesn't have to be, but it's the system that is built now on the foundation of injustice and aimed at disadvantaging whoever is challenging the NRM government.
Honorable Mao, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, does this feed into your pet subject of electoral reforms? And is it time, as the dust settles now, to kickstart a conversation on integrity of elections and reforms in elections?
The question demands that we should first ask, why do we hold elections? Why are elections in Uganda a matter of life and death? After all, elections, as I've frequently said, are supposed to be a competition to serve. Who can serve better than the other? But it is also a sad commentary on why people go into elections in the first place. Starting from the integrity of the candidates themselves. If you have candidates who even forge results in order to be nominated, you have candidates who blatantly bribe voters, just distributing cash, then it means that the goal of the leaders who present themselves is not necessarily to serve really. It is something else. And so if you have a large pool of candidates who are basically stranded in life, and so the election is a lifeline, then they will do anything. So we cannot think about sanitizing our elections without looking at the kind of society we are trying to build. And electoral reforms is only one of those things. MPs were pressurizing me and the government about legal reforms. But we have very good laws. All these things that were done.
You didn't say this initially.
Pardon?
You didn't say this initially.
But I said it. I said it that if we are looking at systemic overhaul, which is really my position and the position of the party I lead, that we should really move away from the winner-take-all kind of politics. To me, that is a legitimate debate. For instance, introducing proportional representation, making elections a lot cheaper and quicker. Through proportional representation, you would be able to hold an election in about 6 weeks maximum, and people vote for parties, and every party presents a list. For instance, in Kampala, we have got 10 seats. Obviously, there would now be more, because we propose that an MP should represent 150,000 Ugandans. Now, by that count, Kampala is the most cheated area in Uganda. Kampala, with all the numbers, cannot have only 10 members of parliament. So there would be no need to even demarcate small constituencies. You just have an electoral area, you call it Kampala, and then you allocate the seats that they should have in parliament. So the NUP would present, assuming Kampala has 3 million voters, that means, okay, 3 million people, then you would have 20 members of parliament. So every party would present a list of its candidates according to their decision as to who qualifies to represent that party in parliament. Then people would vote for the party. All the other parties would present their lists. Then, depending on the proportion of votes a party has received, the seats are allocated. And that will ensure that you, for instance, don't end up with a member of parliament who has got 25%, making the 75% votes actually to be useless. Every vote begins to count. It will also help to reduce the number of MPs. For instance, if you have 45 million Ugandans and the an MP represents 150,000, it means you'll have 300 members of parliament automatically. And then you decide how the list will be formulated in order to capture, for instance, women. If you want to have 50-50, then you use what the experts call the zebra list system. If you start with a woman, then the next candidate should be a man, and so on and so forth. You can then think about how to balance the issues of special interest groups. This is a debate that we should have. Otherwise, the next elections may even be worse.
Well, thank you. We'll be taking a very short break, and when we return, Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda will be telling us which questions the country ought to interrogate if we are to sanitize the elections going forward after the break.
NBS Frontline.
For years, they have studied, they have trained, they have persevered. Now, the moment of honor has come. Finn's Medical University is proud to announce its 5th graduation ceremony. We cordially invite our graduating class of 2025, their esteemed parents and guardians, and the general public to join us in this celebration of academic excellence and professional dedication. The ceremony will be held on Friday, the 27th February 2026, at the Finn's Medical University campus in Fort Portal. Proceedings commence at 9 a.m. Finn's Medical University, a chartered medical university in East Africa.
Breaking now. Now Post delivers Uganda's fastest, accurate news as it happens. From hard-hitting headlines to exclusive interviews, we bring details of stories everyone is talking about. Accurate, fast, and balanced. Get every update at nowpost.co.ug. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and never miss a moment. The Now Post. Accurate news, fast.
Hearts together, or one of many along and
In a digital world, not everything is what it seems. False stories today spread faster than truth, leaving us all wondering what's real. Disinformation misleads, misinformation misguides, and spreads confusion and fear. Dismiss, a campaign to help you think critically, question wisely, and verify thoroughly. Join us. Let's build a more informed Uganda, one truth at a time. Dismiss, inquire, verify, confirm. Together, let's fight fake news.
So, Muchara.
Yes, Daddy.
You know the children are going back to school and things are a bit tight. For now, why don't you take half of the fees to junior school, and for the school van contribution, we shall pay later.
Daddy, why don't we pay using MTN Momo, where we stand a chance of winning school fees for a whole year and more? By the way, you can also apply for a school fees loan, and also participating schools can win a school van.
That's right! Win school fees for a whole year and more. Get Momo goodies and a school van for participating schools. You can also apply for a school fees loan. Simply dial *165*80# or use the Momo app.
is Frontline.
Welcome back as we continue with our deep dive into the complexities in Uganda's electoral journey with the new emerging trends about ballot recounts. That's become something quite bizarre. What realities should the country be confronting? Honorable Samuju.
I think the only recount that has succeeded so far is the one of Masaka. All the others have failed on the same account that...
boxes were tampered.
Yes. So that's why the one of Masaka has become a topical discussion. I agree with Honorable Norbert Mao. The legal regime, even if you don't change it, resolution of electoral disputes is extensively explained by the law. Go for a count, go for this, go for this. But unfortunately, because sometimes even cheating, because it's not just against us, people who cheat and don't want a voter count will go and bribe and make sure that boxes are tampered with. But there are also boxes, because even the handling of the electoral material itself, if you see them delivering and picking, and the quality that they are using. You have areas like Mukono. I saw Mukono North, where Chibule went and his agents drove away the boxes, and that has happened in many other areas. So I think Masaka is just one example that illustrates the problematic nature of this election. And the Electoral Commission, I gave up long ago when we were in Soroti in a by-election. That time we were still in FDC, and NRM was cheating. Our agents who were complaining...
They are by-election, right?
Yes. The chairman, this chairman of the Electoral Commission, Biabakama, came to a polling station in the morning that had been filled with the ballots, and our agents were complaining. He just ordered that they bring another box and the voting starts, and the agents got arrested, that they are disrupting elections. I have kept reminding people, 2001, when Aziz Kasuja, with all his shortcomings, was in charge of elections, there were complaints of military. At that time, I think either PPU or PGB, whichever name it was, they had taken over Rukonjiri. And Aziz Kasuja wrote to President Museveni, I still have that letter. He said, if you don't remove your soldiers from Rukonjiri, it's going to be very difficult for me to organize the elections there. Aziz Kasuja wrote. I don't think we have a Kamakan. Chigundu was even kneel down speaking to Museveni. So even the failure of this biometric, the biometric machines themselves were ordered by Mr. Museveni. And the Honorable Mao sanitized it by bringing
statutory
regulations to give it effect.
On 24th
But the Electoral Commission was not prepared. And throughout, because you just go back and need their 2.5 years strategic plan, what they intended to do, it was not there. So part of the problem is that Museveni wanted it. He believed and kept saying that he was cheated, and therefore it was now his duty to stop rigging. So he imposes a biometric. Not adequate preparation had been done. They may even have discovered later that the shutting down of the internet affected them. So when it is back, the machines are themselves working. So this election, I think, has been run directed by Museveni and his son and the security. And Chigundu is, Biabakama is just giving face.
How about the turn-up? Does it speak to anything?
In Chira, we have 210,000 registered voters. On the presidential and parliamentary election 15th, less than a quarter turned up. less than a quarter. Partly because first they were delivering materials late. This time I was surprised that materials for polling were brought in Chira a week before. This has never happened. A week before. Elections were for Thursday, and the Thursday before, elections are brought. I mean, materials are brought. And we witnessed the arrival. But on the polling day, they arrived at some polling stations, majority, after 9. Yet elections were starting at 7. And as they were arriving, the machines were not working. Effectively, voting started around 11. In some places, at midday. Some boxes, polling station did not open until after lunch. So you had some people who went away as a result of that. But also the faith, because the subsequent election should tell you about the turn-up. I have seen the debate in the media about presidential. I was just telling you during the break. Namatawa, which is a village neighboring Bukasa where I stay, on their register they have 10,000 voters. But the PFF councillor who won there got 204 votes. Then
there are 10,000 voters
registered.
The winner
has 204, followed by NRM at 170. So the total voters are not more than 500, but the registered voters 10,000. This is the sub-count and division chairpersons and councillors elections. So the faith is gone away, and particularly for this last cycle of election, because of the cheating that happened during the mayoral elections, I think people said we're just wasting time. So you turn up, you vote for a candidate, and then they announce another. And at least you announced the second, but how can you announce the third?
Councillor Katana, you've been chanting people power, sloganeering all the time that the people can overwhelm the state. Given the numbers of people who turn up now to elect, could it now be?
Well, first of all is to agree that the low voter turnout is largely influenced by voter suppression. I reached the polling station around 7. I ended up voting at around midday. But number two, the confidence in the processes keeps declining on account of the machinations that end up handing to the people a person they did not vote for. But I think the essence of people power and the voice of citizens as a determinant factor for legitimacy and consent to govern is not restricted to polling day. And therefore, while people may have diminished confidence in the processes, I think it would be improper for anybody to encourage citizens to withdraw from civic duty of engaging in determining who becomes the leader.
Yeah, but here is a disenchanted mass.
Yeah.
That had a lot of steam. How it has all disappeared, God knows.
You know, Simon, I think these developments are not unique to Uganda, are not occurring here for the first time in the history of mankind. They have happened elsewhere, where you have Ben Ali giving himself, I think, 90 or 89%. Then a few years down the road, he's forced out of power. I think the challenge is in our electoral processes and the attendant anger, because this anger actually is not only restricted to the people in the opposition. Even people who support NRM, I have seen people across the country complaining about what transpired in some places who are even NRM people. I think should be a point of reflection for all of us, but especially those that have the power to undermine these processes, that one of the likely outcomes of the continued suppression of the voices of citizens is that it can lead to chaos in the country. In 1980 elections, the other day I was talking to an old man from my place in Oshenyi who told me he was a presiding officer in a place called Bunyaruguru. That the UPC people, on account of power they had that time, went and told them, said, even if you don't vote for UPC, we shall change because that time I think each party would have its ballot box, that we shall change the symbol of UPC and put it on the box that has the bigger number of votes. Because at that time they thought they had leverage and that they had subdued the population. The NRM people should not live under similar deception that they have subdued the population. The danger with injustice is that once you create a culture of impunity, injustice, it may outlive your power when you still live. Even when there is a change of government, instead of people taking you through a trial, they will summarily execute you because that is the culture that you have, you have babysat, you have enabled to grow in the society. So I think this should not only concern us who feel aggrieved because of the process that has differentiated us, but it should be a concern to the NRM people as well, that this continued injustice sets a stage.
But you've seen them in Zimbabwe and
yes,
Chazanga.
And Chazanga.
Actually, before I get to Honorable Mao, Honorable Semuju, yes, would you exonerate Honorable Mao of any blame for the mess that has characterized the elections?
You see, the trouble is that the Electoral Commission is supposed to be independent. So
yes, he's at the helm of.
Honorable Mao represents it in Parliament.
To beg for money.
Yeah. But it's supposed to be independent.
Process.
So what I want, because of that, he may not be blameless, because for us in Parliament, it is him that we ask. I remember when he was sworn in, we were very happy, and even the Speaker said now, reforms. He had even promised they are before a cabinet, and they were never brought. So because he's the face of Electoral Commission in Parliament and elsewhere, and his assignment is justice and constitutional affairs. You may use that ground to blame him, but the Electoral Commission is supposed to be independent of everybody. Yeah.
So then, Honorable Mao, if you were in charge, what would you do better?
And he's the chairman of the Electoral Commission.
No. Because he's now at the helm. I think he's the one to call the EC boss to order and to realign things. What would you do?
First, the Electoral Commission should send clear messages that there will be no elections if there is impunity and interference from external actors. That's what Stephen Akabwai did in Gulu. The moment he saw that fake ballots were being brought, he nullified the elections. And that is it. When there's chaos in the football pitch, the only thing the referee can do is to stop the match. So when people realize that everybody is going to lose, you lose money, then eventually you start restraining yourself.
So has EC negated on its role as the referee?
It is important for the EC to be more assertive and to make it very clear as to what will be acceptable and what will not be acceptable. And then you need the security forces and even the people who have power now. We who are in the government, we should realize that ultimately we want to serve the people. I wish the people for whom elections are rigged would really serve the people and deliver on the expectations of the people. If really somebody is going to rig elections for me, it must be for some very noble objective. Either I am going to change the lives of people, but if the purpose of rigging is simply to give me an opportunity to earn a salary and so on. I think that is not totally acceptable.
Honorable, if I took you back to the massacre scenario, do you think the new MP now subverted the will of the people?
You mean
Namere? Because initially they had declared Narubowa as duly elected with a landslide.
As to who eventually becomes the MP elect, either on account of election petitions and so on, I think that is not something for which you blame an individual. So I would excuse Justin Namere herself, but I look at the facts. I want to go and study what you have put on the table. You said that, that something unusual happened. It is unthinkable, mathematically even, that 100% of the votes in a ballot box can be for one person. You know, if that really is the case, you know, if even thieves steal and leave something little, if you steal everything, then you are not even a good thief. But I want to investigate that and find out what happens. What we have got to insist on, and I don't mind if anybody blames me. You know, the president was the main advocate for the BVVK kits. He was the main advocate. I went with a delegation of Electoral Commission to persuade the president to direct that a lot more money should be allocated for procuring those BVVK machines, because we had panicked that the batteries would not last even the whole duration of the election. So procurement was done to make sure that there's even a reserve machine based on the example of Ghana. And the purpose of those machines was to ensure that you can verify whether the ballots in the box match the record in the machines. But I have to be very frank tonight and say that not everybody was unanimous in their support for the machines. There are people who believe in rigging, and for them those machines were a nightmare. And I wouldn't put it beyond.
So there was no goodwill across?
I think there are some people who were fearing those machines. If our police stations had, for instance, lie detectors, I think many people would be worried. You have seen how people even don't want CCTV cameras in certain places. For me, I'd even proposed body cams, that presiding officers should have body cameras that film everything that is going around. So if, to me, the most serious allegations are those of collusion between those who want to rig elections and election officials, because that now undermines the very essence of free and fair elections.
What does the future of electoral democracy in Uganda look like in the midst of these new patterns? You've had the new trend now of denominations. Now we are going into irregular recounts.
Uganda is on a journey. Remember, we never even had leaders who are democratically elected. Professor Mamdani famously talked about the fusion of legislative, executive, and judicial power in the village chief. Those were people who were not even elected. The same person imposes a tax by decree, and if you don't pay, he arrests you, and then he tries you and imposes the fine on you, basically fusing all those powers. We moved away from that. We went into a system of elections, I think those elections of 1962, they remain a scar. As you know, like in Tanzania and Kenya, certain parties won elections. Here in Uganda, DP won elections, but because Buganda boycotted, the powers that be, the British, decided that there would be a second election. There was no second election in Tanzania. There was no second election in Kenya.
Fast forward, does anything tell you that Uganda's elections are moving from bad to worse?
Sometimes when you hit rock bottom, then the only place to go is up. I believe that given that the victims are across the board, because the lamentation started with even the primaries. So now that the victims are in all political formations, it's my hope that we will have a core of people who can continue advocating for serious reforms, including thinking of, for instance, an upper house to balance the country. If you have a small parliament of 300, and because some people will have fewer MPs where there's sparse population, then you balance it using the upper house, the way it is done in America. So I want to assure those who are watching this show that the only thing you really have is hope. Do not lose hope.
Honorable Somuji, on that very note, has the country hit rock bottom on electoral democracy?
I don't even know whether we'll be able to pick it and where to pick it from. Because the institutions of the state have all been captured. And the individual NRM leaders in their own areas are like Somali's warlords. Where they are, they determine how things, because you see, when the unopposed phenomenon started, I thought it would stop on one or two people. It spread. I think by the time we went through the nomination, we had 15, then it became 17. The behavior of individual NRM people who feel entitled, you saw what happened in Mukono with Chibule. You saw Nambi at the Kampala Terrace Center. And I think up to now she must be feeling very bad that how comes the others were announced and it is me who is not announced. Now, Namere in Masaka. And I have heard her, she's for us, we're a new stock, you will see us. What has happened in my own area has never happened. That you have councillors after winning election, they go to the terrace center, and those who came through are the ones being announced. Some of them are children, university who are crying. You see, at my age, when you lose an election, you've lost it. Even when you are cheated, you can put it up with it. But these are university students we have asked to stand as councillors, being cheated, and they are crying. You don't even know what to do with them. And if it was localized, I would say, okay, for us, we are unlucky. But here, Entebbe is crying, Katavi is crying, everybody is crying. So this is the worst election that we have had, at least in the areas where I've been able to follow. But when you hear stories of others, in Western Uganda, I think it is in 2001, during when Besigye was a candidate, that they were voting for people. You remember, was he a bishop or a father who arrived and he was told, for you support Besigye, you have already voted for you, you want to go and dig. If he has stories in Sembabule. So that trend has come back. There are areas in Western Uganda where voters arrived and they are told, but we finished voting, we wanted to go and dig. There are videos of military people voting, taking ballots and staffing. And these stories, because at Parliament where I am, you have victims who have gathered after this exercise. So you hear stories from all corners. So this is the worst election.
It presents opportunities. Like Honorable Mao says, it's now time, since everyone is crying, it's now time to sit and sanitize.
I am not sure whether we've not lost it. I am not sure. Because the next elections are threatening to be the worst. And I sympathize with the one who will be in charge of electoral commission.
Do you appreciate the fact that the country has hit rock bottom and perhaps the future of elections is bleak?
Maybe hit something beneath the bottom.
Yeah. I agree entirely. When you talk about everyone complaining, but there are also those who are just thumping, over 71%. I don't think Namere, for example, is complaining. I don't think the NRM chairman in Mukono is complaining. Why? Because he's a beneficiary of the injustice, but he doesn't know that in the next cycle, he might be the victim. The danger with the organization of elections for performative purposes, not for purposes of obtaining consent, is that when, because the numbers keep reducing, and even when you would previously be able to cheat minimally, now you are forced to do it on a grand scheme. But also with decreasing levels of legitimacy, there is always the desire to give yourself an injection. First of all, to discourage those who oppose you and their supporters, to show them that the journey they are pursuing of challenging you through electoral means has no future, but also to give the supporters you have the image that you enjoy a lot of support. I've given you examples. Bashir, before the eventual collapse, I think had been giving himself 80 and above. Then Ali in Tunisia, the same. So it happens everywhere, especially with the regimes that have been in power for a long time, but also because they have got away with a lot of impunity. It emboldens them to do more.
Okay. Do you agree, like Besigye has always argued, that elections are increasingly becoming meaningless and participating in them would legitimize the regime?
To a big extent, these machinations in the minds of the population, elections seem to be becoming meaningless. But I don't think unless you are picking up arms to go to the bush and fight, or you have prepared something else, I don't think the solution is in withdrawing. Because when you withdraw, then you have enabled the one who has made them seemingly meaningless.
And when you participate?
You have helped them to achieve their objectives.
And when you participate?
I believe that, for example, PFF, if it's not an election time, may not be allowed to go and hold a rally in Kasese. You have seen it. But during campaigns, they have been in Kasese, they have been everywhere, they have campaigned. The implication is that in the long run, the civic awareness built across the country and over time may be the game changer. It may be through an election, it may be through citizens' action and uprising like it has happened in other countries. It may be also pressure built on the regime to the extent that it will listen to the voices that are talking about reforms and things of that nature. So I don't think the solution to the problems would be withdrawing.
Thank you. I want us to switch gears, gentlemen. The big headline that's trending now is about Mao's bid for speakership. Initially, it was corridor talk, but when he came out recently at a press conference, it further cleared the air. Honorable Mao, is it true you want the speakership? And who is asking you to stand?
The former President Binaisa famously said, every rumor in Uganda is true. And he started by saying that Kampala is a city of 7 hills and 7 rumors a day, and all the rumors are true. Another person said, never believe a rumor until it is denied. I want to be very explicit that when I was declared as the winner of the parliamentary seat of Laropeche, a lot of people started talking about the prospect of me being the Speaker of Parliament. And the only way you can become Speaker of Parliament is if you are elected in a secret ballot by the members of Parliament. Now, there are many of those who are urging me are not necessarily members of Parliament. But Parliament is a people's house. And those who are going to vote for the Speaker, they represent those same people who don't sit in that Parliament. And citizens have certain expectations, particularly at this time in our history. I therefore reflected on it and decided that it is a good thing if people believe in you.
I'm cautious to believe that anyone is asking you to stand. There was a time you peddled this narrative that you had a meeting with the president and you talked about transition, then the president publicly came out and disowned you. Could this be another lie from Mao?
Well, as usual, Kagwa, you are gaslighting me, and you are really running away from the topic that you said we should debate. My response to what you have just said is that we have a cooperation agreement, and peaceful presidential transition is there in black and white, and the president signed it. And so you can believe what you want to believe.
Okay.
But the cooperation agreement that we signed is about a peaceful transition in Uganda. It is about national reconciliation. It's about national dialogue and constitutional reforms.
Back to the speakership, yes. What kind of breath are you bringing in?
I don't think it is really about that now. I think the real question now is whether my candidature is viable. I believe my candidature is viable. And that's why I announced that I'm carrying out consultations. And in the next few days, I will announce what is normally called an exploratory committee. I do not want just to raise dust. I want to present a substantive alternative to what we have now.
Honorable Semuju, what would make Mao the man to watch in the race for speakership? At least you've been there thrice and you know the shenanigans that play out in the whole process.
I stood for speakership. I got 15 votes. Were 100 and I think either 6 or 9 opposition MPs. The trouble with the MPs, everybody will tell you, I'm going to support you.
Oh, really?
Yes, even Kadaga.
That's how all Ugandans are.
People who had pledged to nominate her, on the nomination day disappeared. She had to assemble another team. Mao will certainly be a very good speaker. He was a very good MP, I've said this 100 times. His knowledge as a lawyer, his experience. But that's not what the NRM is looking for. I remember, and then Mao must have been an MP at that time when the Honorable Ben Watcher nearly became a deputy speaker. The president met the NRM caucus. The NRM MPs were very happy with the Honorable Ben Watcher because as the chair of the Committee on Rules and Discipline, when court outlawed voice voting, And I think the judgment of court was that bills were supposed to be processed by the Committee on Rules. So the opposition thought that Ben Wacha would fail the processing of a new constitutional bill that I think was brought by Mayanja Nkanyi. But Ben Wacha said, this is my job as the chair of a committee. How can a committee be asked to work and I say I'm not going to do it? So the NRM MPs were very happy and they wanted Ben Wacha to become, I think, a deputy speaker. But when Museveni met them, he said, you see, because of his principle, you can't have him as a speaker. Government is not run that way. Some names you may need to divert a bit from the law. And if you have a man like Ben Wacha who has even disappointed his own people because of his principle, then we're in trouble. So that became the reason for him not to become a speaker.
So what would be the odds for
Mao? The trouble that the Honorable Mao has now is that he has a cooperation agreement with NRM. So he works with NRM. So the opposition can have Honorable Mao as their candidate, certainly. And the NRM, from what I read, is that they have announced their candidates. Mariomus was complaining they followed no process. And this parliament is no longer looking for a good speaker, for a person who was qualified to be a good speaker. That ended. Because the secondaries became speakers because people valued their legal knowledge and said these ones will make very good speakers. We've moved away from that. So Mao doesn't qualify to be an
It would be a tall order. In the current scheme of things,
he's overqualified to be a Speaker of Parliament, so they need someone who is not very far from Nabanja.
Well, we need to take a very short break, and when we return, Council Katana will also be weighing in on Mao's bid. Would the National Inter-Platform be persuaded to support a man who launched a one-man army against the party? We'll be back.
NBS Frontline.
When the news moves, you move with it on AfroMobile. Get real-time updates and the moment they unfold. Choose from over 80 live TV and radio channels and follow current affairs your way on the platforms you rely on the road, in the office, in the middle of your work, or out and about. AfroMobile keeps the story going with you. Download AfroMobile today and stay connected to every update as it happens.
Hey, hey, travelers! Are you a family gearing up for that big vacation, a hustler working abroad coming home, or your squad chasing sunsets and passport stamps? It's time you lock in. Say goodbye to long airport queues, shocking roaming bills, and the stress of hunting for local SIM cards, because now you can travel like a local. Stay connected in over 180 countries. Just scan, tap, and boom! Instant data the moment you reach your destination. Get your Rogue Travel eSIM today at travel.roguetelecom.co.ug. Contact us on 020-5000123.
Who's the most recent auntie you've talked to?
Marjorie.
Okay. She knows something that you ought to know about your family and about something that is going to release you in that area. I'm going to pray for you. You will talk to her. She will reveal to you certain things that will astound you. But there are things that you do not know that you ought to have.
Watch The Power of Prophecy with Prophet Elvis Mbonye this Saturday, 6:30 p.m. on NBS TV, Uganda.
Across Uganda,
The parish development model is paving the way for prosperity, helping families transform their lives through strategic farming practices, like the 4-acre model.
In our Chivaro of 1996, we said first acre, put coffee. Second acre, fruits. The third acre, you put pasture for dairy cows. The fourth acre, for food, cassava. The good thing is that now cassava is also becoming a very good cash product, but at least for food. Then, mind you, the backyard. You put poultry for eggs, you put piggery.
I'm in a 1-acre plot of land. In this 1 acre, Your Excellency, I practice this banana plantation. I also practice coffee. I also have dairy, Your Excellency. Every month, Your Excellency, I get 500,000 from these branches.
The 7 activities we recommended, they have a big global demand.
We have 10,000 Nile tilapia fish and 10,000 African catfish. And when we sell our 10,000 tilapia, we get in one harvest 20 million shillings.
Fruits, especially capsule, which is cold, can do very high value crops like apples. And then finally, those who are near the wetlands, like the ones in Bukit who are wasting the wetlands, they should do fish farming, not in the center of the swamp, but at the edge of the swamp.
From coffee farms to fish ponds, the 4-acre model is empowering Ugandans to transform their lives. The parish development model is your pathway to wealth creation. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance.
NBS Frontline.
Welcome back. It's still the Frontline as we make sense of what is headlining. At the moment, it is the man, Honorable Norbert Mao, bidding for speakership. Would Noop be persuaded to support a man who has fought you forever?
Has he?
The one-woman army, self-declared.
Well, I don't remember which American president once said that a day is a long time in politics.
Is it time to bury the hatchet?
So, well, that would be speculative on my part, to start giving a position on that matter. But I think ultimately, who becomes the speaker will be determined by the strategic interests of Museveni at that time. And if the strategic interest at that time and by Museveni is now, I don't know, I think it is the current speaker who talked about the Trinity. There's the Father, the Son, and the Brother. So, if,
the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the Holy Trinity or not. May not necessarily be holy, but the Trinity. And one of the members of the Trinity has lately been heaping praises on the Honorable Mao. So if that is to be taken as a signal, I think it is too early to call the race.
So you should take the compliment seriously.
That is up to him. But if it is a signal that...
or he's falling for flattery.
I don't know if it is flattery. I don't know the person who is... So I'm not able to give an opinion on whether it is flattery or not. But I think it is too early to determine who becomes the speaker. And I think the current speaker is aware that it is the decision of Mr. Museveni that will determine who becomes the speaker. That's why they rushed to procure the purported resolution, which many people in NRM have been questioning and debating. But I think history has showed us, especially in the recent past, that the institution of parliament, the leadership of the institution of parliament is largely determined by the choice of Museveni. And I think that...
In your opinion, what is for or against Mao?
Well, I think what is for him is what the Honorable Semuji mentioned, his stellar performance as a member of parliament.
Does it count?
Ideally, it should, but like I mentioned, that in the current dispensation, the abilities or lack of may not be a big factor in determining who becomes speaker. But as an observer and as a person that has been involved in the following the events, I think Parliament would do better with a different speaker who, regardless of where they belong politically, understands that they sit in that chair to steer the House in a non-partisan manner, who will allow debate uncontrolled, but also whose conduct will not bring into disrepute the institution.
For now, do you consider Mao as opposition?
It is not for me to consider him opposition or not.
No.
If he says he's opposition,
where
he's
would you
opposition.
place him? Where would you place him?
It's not my business.
For now.
It is not my business. Well, for now, on account of the secretive cooperation agreement, he's an ally of the NRM.
That gives him an edge.
And he has mentioned, if I listened well, that he was going to support Museveni, to vote for him.
And I did.
Yes, and he's confirming that he did. So, on account of that...
Maybe it's a scratch my back, I scratch yours.
On account of that, I think very many people would find it hard to count him as opposition, because the question would be, opposition to what? Because he's the one who has voted the person, brought him to office. So maybe...
that what Parliament needs is institutional power as opposed to personal power. And it is our duty to persuade the country that that is good. Secondly, a speaker should not undermine the stability of the country. I believe in stability. I come from a part of Uganda that knows what war is. Northern Uganda knows what armed conflict can do. We need stability. But most importantly, we now have a president whose age is advanced. We are believing that, given the way he talks these days, and the other day he was saying that his campaign was not really a campaign. He was simply mobilizing the country to focus on the things that matter, as opposed to having a beauty contest of this leader is better than this one, this leader. But I believe that he's committed to ensuring the long-term stability. So in his sunset years, we want to see a glorious and beautiful sunset, one which gives hope.
There is a hint I'm picking. Are you in this for succession? Could this be a precursor to the succession?
What I'm saying is, I don't want it to be about me. Actually, the new MPs can do whatever they want, but eventually they will be judged. And my job is to focus on what matters. The country should be stable. We should make sure we focus on nation building to keep Uganda together. And now, for every setting sun, there's also a rising sun.
I think you've been deliberately ambiguous.
Strategic ambiguity. It is not ambiguous. In other words, you have heard the president saying that he is preparing the country. That is about to go to heaven. Yeah, I think you can choose to listen to what you want to hear, but you can see that there is a thread running through all the things that the president said. First, he has said he thanks God for giving him opportunity to preside over this country for long. And there are tangible things that he has achieved for this country. And no matter what you think about him personally, whether because you're opposition or what, this is not an easy country to lead. In fact, any country is not easy to lead. So if somebody can lead it for this long, I think it is only wise to study. What have they got right? Definitely, he must have got more things right.
Okay, this is what I pick. Could you be positioning yourself for transition?
Every country must have a transition. That's why I said you have a setting sun, which must not set the way Benjamin Castana talked about Sudan and Tunisia. That's not the kind of setting sun we want. We want a setting sun which mobilizes our country, particularly the youth, to believe that Uganda is going to be a very rich country on account of the wealth we have. Many of us may not be around even to see the best of that wealth, but we must assure that country that is possible. So the rising sun must be ready.
Honorable Samuju, Honorable Mao seems to speak with innuendos. Could this now be feeding into what he earlier hinted on, behind the scenes conversations about transition and the network working behind the scenes?
I don't know. I have kept saying this. And each time I say so, because I asked him, and he told me at the beginning, the president said, we can discuss transition. But each time he said he brought the matter, the president would stray into something else, and it is never discussed. Maybe probably is the reason he wanted to contest the last election. I think the Honorable Mao, the Mao I know is a very intelligent person, so he knows that that transition is not there, it is ended. Maybe the family will determine when they are there, the Trinity will sit and determine transiting from who to who. That's why they keep fighting. But it's not bad for him to continue desiring. That's natural, that's human. Even knowing that you are speaking to people who are not interested in that conversation, and I want to salute him, you don't abandon it. So you continue banging on their door, guys, there is a transition. And he's done it.
Throw it in their faces.
Being intelligent, he's doing it in the way, very respectful. Because I know maybe that's what they want. Because you must make a choice. Do you go shouting at them, will they listen to you? Or you continue the Mao way that these guys have done very well, but there is a transition. So really the choice is yours.
The sunrise, sunset narrative.
Yeah. But there is no transition with Museveni. I don't think Museveni is different from Paul Biya of Cameroon, even at 94.
You think after the sunset there will be no sunrise?
We pray that there is sunrise.
But, and can we pray for a beautiful sunset?
So what I see, I think it was also a choice by Museveni. You had Mbabazi, when he was a prime minister, he ended up wanting to be a president. When you had Gilbert of Kenya, who was a vice president, he ended up wanting to be a president. So you now deploy people who are not interested in anything apart from what you have given them. You get Arupo to become a vice president. You get deputy prime minister. That's a team he wants to assemble. So in that team, Mao has no position. Unfortunately for him, because I remember one time, either it must have been the 9th or the 10th parliament, we sat as opposition and said we must present candidates. We presented in Nandala and Odongoto. The NRM presented theirs. I don't know who will present Mao, because certainly the opposition will not present him if he voted Museveni and he works with Museveni. But the Museveni, I know, cannot trust Mao to be a speaker.
But if the opposition also does not vote for the candidate they have presented, like you.
No, me, I presented myself. I asked them to present the candidate, they refused. And I said, if you have refused, I will present myself. Okay. And they punished me for presenting myself. But there was time we presented the candidates. So that's the challenge he faces.
Oh, it is just one of those adventurous
trials. No, I have told you, and I respect him. You've got to make a choice. Do you go to Museveni shouting, we want transition, or you go cajoling him like Mao, maybe he will accept. But the Museveni, I know, it doesn't matter whether you are shouting, whether you are cajoling him. Museveni is a beer, he's a Mugabe.
So you think he's not persuadable?
He's beyond that. He's beyond that. So he
said... Do we need to read too much into Mao's bid?
I don't know. I am not stopping anyone. You can read either too much.
Yourself, would you be really keen to see where it ends?
I want him to contest, and I hope he will. And I hope really he will. He said he was going to present a committee. I wait to see that committee. When Wacha, mainly the MPs wanted Ben Wacha to become part of the speakership. I remember the Honorable Cecilia Ogwar, Tumwine, Tinyefuza and others even went to meet Museveni in Chisos to persuade him to accept Ben Wacha to be a deputy speaker. That time I think politics worked differently. It's changed a bit. It's more polarized than it was. So if Mao wanted to be a speaker, probably there should be teams, not assembling a cabinet team, a campaign team. But team is going to meet the Trinity.
You call it the exploratory.
Yeah. Team is going to meet the Trinity. They meet the Sun. They meet.
One of the Noob Trinities is here. So I'll start with talking to one of the Noob Trinity.
You'll be now engaging the wrong person.
I want us again to shift to another topic. What is the fate of your president of the National Unity Platform?
There were unfortunate developments at his residence the other day. The soldiers broke in, assaulted his wife, assaulted the domestic workers at home. They have now turned the home into a garrison. They have even erected tents in the compound. There's nobody in the house because the domestic worker they were living with was forced to flee. The security guard is locked in his guard house at night. He doesn't know what happens in the main house. He doesn't know what happens outside. You remember the doors were broken and everything turned upside down in the house. So he continues to be in hiding because there have been continued threats from the Chief of Defense Forces to find and hurt him, and which threats have been followed through with the attack on his wife and the other members of the family. The other day, I think yesterday, one of our leaders in the chairperson of the Election Management Committee, who hails from Kapchorwa, was arrested on suspicion that she knew the whereabouts. She says after they had taken her through some ordeal and they established that she didn't know where he was, they set her free, which clearly confirms that he's under pursuit. So we believe that he's alive.
How much paralysis has it brought to the national inter-platform?
Of course, that together with other factors, like you know that some of our other leaders, the deputy presidents, if you exclude the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, who is on remand, the others are in communicado detention, having been abducted. So there is fear, and fear as a result of that, and as a result of that fear, people are not doing what they are supposed to do freely, like they should be doing, because the absence of the leader would certainly affect the party, but other people would continue doing some work. But with now everyone living under fear, it has certainly had an impact on the operations of the party.
Honorable Mao, how absurd is the situation in National Inter-Platform that their president is in hiding after an election?
I think we go back to the law. I would be interested in knowing whether there are any steps that either his family or his lawyers have taken, because there are clearly measures that people can take.
Missing person.
This is not simply a political problem. It is also a legal problem. The state is not supposed to come and occupy the home of any citizen without explanation.
But the state is hounding the former presidential candidate.
I also believe that if anybody is wanted for any crime, that should be explicit, because the state should not start chasing you for no reason whatsoever. And I do believe that if anybody is looking for the NUP president, they must state why they are looking for him. After all, it's the same state that nominated him. The Electoral Commission gave him a certificate of nomination. His campaign program was approved, and he has a sizable following.
Yeah, but you are aware of the threats that have been
Yes,
served.
I'm aware of the threats, but it is also important to tackle it in a holistic manner. That's why I was asking whether there are any measures that have been taken either by his lawyers. I would be interested in really knowing whether anything like that has happened. I saw press conferences that have been held at the NUP headquarters. I've also seen press conferences that have been held by other leaders. Definitely anybody who threatens to carry out extrajudicial killing is out of order. I don't think that is the kind of country that we should be building. It is in our country, it is possible to jail someone legitimately within the law. It is possible to even execute someone. We still have the death penalty within the law. And I think whatever we do, we should be able to explain. If the NUP president has committed any crimes, those crimes should be explicitly stated. Now, the ordeal that his wife went through, according to her own video account, it is important that those who did that should be held accountable. In any case, we must ask ourselves, what will be the meaning of these things 20 years from today, 30 years from today, 50 years from today? These things will be on record. So the sooner we come clean as a government, the better. If someone has offended the law, they have to be confronted, also legally.
We want to end on that. Honorable Semaju, the disappearance or the predicament that Honorable Kyagulanyi is going through.
I have said this, maybe just repeating myself, that everything Dr. Wesley went through, they will go through it. The other day we were going back in history and found newspapers when Anselm, I think that time was 3 years old, was arrested. 3-year-old Anselm was arrested on his way to Rwanda with an aunt. And they told the aunt who was taking care that he were trafficking the child. But they just told them to go back. So the one who was trafficking Anselm was told to take him back. The contesting against Museveni and fiercely contesting against him is a crime, unstated. So the moment you offer yourself, know what will happen. Besigye's brother was picked and arrested for treason. He came back and died from prison. So there will be a price to pay, except if you are joking. But if you are serious about it, Museveni is unforgiving. He thinks it is his birthright to be the president of Uganda, and I sympathize with Honorable Mao, who keeps advocating for a transition. This man thinks it is his birthright to be a president of Uganda. Therefore, disturbing him, you will pay the price. I mean,
yeah, but does it baffle you that it's no longer headlining, that Bobi Wine has disappeared? And
but we are talking about it. We are talking about it.
It's not receiving as much traction as you'd imagine.
It would have received, because you see, he said he was in hiding. That is different from the presidents, his deputies who were kidnapped and kept. But him, and we keep getting briefing from senior officials of his party who are saying he's okay. Maybe they talk to him for them to declare that he's okay. But otherwise, they should worry everybody that after a presidential election, the other day Besigye was in Karamoja, in Luzira, that this one is in hiding, that we hold the elections, and after the elections, it is chaos. At one time, I had started thinking, because we have spent, the Electoral Commission had proposed about 2.3 trillion shilling in there, 2.5 years to take plan. So you spend little resources that you have, and then after spending, so you achieve nothing. You achieve nothing because Museveni thinks this is ours. That's the mentality even his son has. Why are you disturbing my father? And when he tweeted those photos of Kyagulanyi's wife, anyone sensible cannot do that. Anyone sensible cannot do that. That you go and either confiscate CCTV cameras and then you retrieve videos and you begin sharing them. Here, where is decency?
Well, gentlemen, what a pleasure hosting you tonight. Honorable Norbert Mao, you are wearing too many hats at the moment.
Do you want any of them?
Good to have you. Catch you again next Thursday. Cheers.